Hey guys, and welcome back to Great Grace and Growth. Again, I am Laura Navaquin, and today we are tackling that burning question that I get asked all the time, and really the question that I feel holds back students the most from actually getting started and acting on investing in real estate. The question is, can I invest in real estate without any money or even very little money? Really, the short answer is yes. It's absolutely possible to invest in real estate with very little money of your own. Let's dive into the details here. So, ultimately, the point isn't about investing with little money at all, because rather every single real estate transaction actually involves money to some capacity or not. But the question really is rather, can you invest in real estate with very little to no money of your own? And this is really where creative financing comes into play. So many investors utilize these strategies even when you do have the funds, because why tie up your own personal funds and have it sitting there tied up, not being liquid, while you have holding fees when you're in the midst of a flip or a hold or whatever it may be. So let's not go too deep into those weeds right now, but let's dive into a few of the creative financing options that you can do when you have very little or no personal income to actually invest in real estate. And in a later episode, I'll dive much deeper into each of these strategies on how they work, how do you set them up, what are the advantages and disadvantages, and so forth. But let's just keep it high level right now. So, one, in some of the most effective strategies that we ourselves have used, and as well as many of my colleagues, or, do I call them colleagues? Many other people that we have connected with, other real estate investors within our network. So, one is partners. So, ultimately, finding a partner with capital that might be lacking something that you have. So, this is really, a trade off. Perhaps you don't have personal income to be able to invest and get started in real estate, but you have the time to do the research and do the legwork, or you have the knowledge and the know-how on how to find these properties off market, how to work the contracts, how to have the conversations, or whatever it may be. So you have an asset that you can trade, ultimately partner on with somebody else who has the capital. You guys each have a strong point, you come together, and it's a win-win situation. So you're providing the knowledge and they're providing the funding. Number two is lease option strategies. So this involves leasing a property with the option to purchase it later. So this ultimately allows you to have control of the property and generate income from it without the need of a large investment upfront. This really can work, perhaps there's a landlord on a particular property and they are not too interested in putting in the time to go out and list it for Airbnb or to fix it up or whatever it may be. You can have the conversation with that landlord to let you ultimately, where you're leasing it with the option to purchase it later on, and either for you to live in it to purchase later on. So that's an option for a personal home, but also on the investment side, where you can then sublease that property out to others, whether it be in a short-term rental or a long-term rental, where you are still making a small percentage of passive income, but you're also getting the option down the road to purchase that with favorable terms on yourself. Number three are USDA no down payment loans. So this may not be for everybody, but it is an option. These are available on properties typically in rural areas. They require no down payment up front, making it a really attractive option if you have no funds. But it really just depends what it is that you're looking to do with that. If you're looking to do a short-term rental, this may be great, because if it's an Airbnb or just, a short-term rental listed on a different platform, and you're going to fix it up and really make it a destination area, this could be great. The only, I won't say the only, one of the main caveats that I would list for that is you typically have to live in it for a year. But again, you can't, you wouldn't mind being out in a rural area, or It is a multiplex, so duplex, triplex, fourplex. You can have a residence in one of those units while the others are being rented out. Number 4 is FHA 3% loan. So this is a Federal Housing Administration, I believe is what it stands for. And this offers loans with typically quite favorable terms within it, making home ownership possible for many, but also the option to have very little capital to put down in that down payment. Again, I believe the terms are that you have to live in it for at least 1 year. This is an option that we personally have used ourselves with one of the properties that we are then turning into an investment rental property. Number 5 is seller financing. So again, if you find a property that's off market, you can work those terms through with the seller. So discuss payments, interest rate, and the length of the term. So whether it's a 15, 20, 30-year 30-year loan that you're working out in agreements with them and what that percentage is. So ultimately, you could have some down payment that you're putting towards that you're giving to the seller. In some instances, no money up front or no down payment works out as well. We've used seller financing a number of times. But then again, instead of paying a bank those monthly payments, you are setting it up to fund and pay the seller. And this can work, without going too in depth as far as strategies, but work down the road. So yes, you can have a 30-year loan with the seller where you're making payments on to them for this particular property on a monthly basis, the same as you would with a bank loan. But depending on the method that you're doing, when you refinance it later on, after the property is reassessed and appraised, you could take the funds from that come from a traditional bank that are then you're getting that loan based on the value of the property. So that's a whole method with the BRRRR method. But if that's something you're looking to do too, you take those funds from the traditional bank, pay off the seller so that you're no longer owing them on a regular basis, because then you now have a mortgage through a bank. So there's so many more details there, which I'll fill you in later on when we discuss the BRRRR method specifically in detail. But for now, seller financing is always an option if you do not necessarily have any money or very little for down payment. Work out the agreements with the seller. Also, number 6, private and hard money. So many people really shy away from this, I believe, typically up front. As I would consider myself a seasoned investor, but having been in real estate for a number of years now, private money is really from the bank. Hard money is really the one I want to focus on here. So going out and finding lenders, so individuals that will give you a loan based on a few different stipulations. Typically, they're sometimes looking at your credit score, but they'll usually go a little lower to 620, 640, depending, on their own prerequisites there. Also, sometimes instead of taking your credit score or personal income into evaluation there, they'll look at the appraised value of the property that you are actually investing in. There's a few different things. So all hard money lenders are a little different. They have their own stipulations. They're basically loaning you money at a higher than normal interest rate, but don't get scared there, because really, this is great for a flip. Even the BRRRR method, this is wonderful, because if you're taking a hard money loan for 6 months, even a year, I would say usually no more than a year, you usually have a method in which you're going to flip them, pay them back, and take your proceeds. And all these numbers are worked into your spreadsheets when you're running the numbers on a particular property, and it does work, especially when you find the property off market. One of my favorite go-to methods is hard money from a hard money lender. Number 7 is wholesaling. And really, I can't say that, I mean, not even to say that. I've used wholesaling. I've shared with you a number of times before, and, on social media and in other sources, other methods of webinars that we've had and so forth. But wholesaling, that's actually where we got started in real estate. Went back in 2015 when we took the real estate course that we invested nearly $30,000 in and hit the ground running in wholesaling. Typically, we were focusing on New Jersey, and then they're spread out in a few other areas around the Northeast. Wholesaling involves finding a property, getting it under contract, then finding a seller. So these are finding properties that are off market usually, and there's a few different ways on how you find those properties, and we'll go into those in depth when we touch on wholesaling. But typically you're getting that property under contract at a below market value, typically because the person who's selling it, the seller, wants out of it for a number of reasons. It could be foreclosure, financial troubles. Maybe they inherited the property and they really don't have an interest in keeping it, maintaining it, or back taxes, or whatever it really may be. Every scenario is very different, but ultimately getting that property under contract, finding a seller for it, typically an investor, where you're then going to get the funds and have an assignment fee built into that, which is your commission, which you can then use to either pay yourself, so that's your income, or use that to then reinvest, ultimately income to reinvest in a property that you're going to hold down the road. And that commission typically ranges, which I shared with you guys in the past, between $2,000 to about $20,000. I usually build in my assignment fee around $10,000. That's a pretty go-to norm for us, but have gone down to about $2,000. But ultimately, I've known investors who have gone up to $20,000, and it really just depends on the property. Definitely works when you're doing commercial properties or multi-unit properties, to build in a higher assignment fee there. Okay, guys, so we will dive in deeper to each of these strategies in later episodes, but ultimately I wanted you to understand that it is possible to invest in real estate with very little to no personal income of your own, or savings, your personal income. Even if you have personal savings, you may not want to tie up your personal funds in real estate investing. I know I personally don't. We did it in the beginning, and once we learned creative financing, especially hard money lenders and so many other different strategies, we never, I won't say never, but really rarely in the past year have not used any of our personal funds when closing on a new property. Because, why would you, when you have access to OPM, which is other people's monies, to help you scale your investments and keep your funds liquid? So here's the thing. Leveraging creative financing isn't just about getting started. It's a powerful tool for scaling your portfolio. So when you're using other people's money in the industry, very often known as OPM, you're freeing up your own capital, allowing you to take more opportunities to grow your wealth quicker. Or just having access to that for a rainy day. So let's recap. Yes, you can invest in real estate without using your own money. Strategies like partnering, lease options, no down payment loans, seller financing, private and hard money lenders, wholesaling, they all make it possible, along with many other strategies that I'll go over with you in later episodes. The key to remember is to be creative and resourceful and build your network. So that's it for today's episode on grit, grace, and growth. Thanks for tuning in. And if you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone else you think might benefit. So join me next time as we explore more strategies and dive deeper into creative financing techniques. Remember, with grit, and grace, you can achieve incredible growth. Until next time, keep striving towards your dreams.